What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of View for Rurouni Kenshin. This is episode, like,
47.
yeah, 27, but I guess technically it's, 46, 47? Like, overall.
47th
Yeah,
episode for this
yeah, and with me, as
series.
always, I have Blue Spade.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's obviously like, we know that the storyline's not over, but of course they decided to just end it off at such an odd spot for the season to end.
Well, my problem with
It's
it is
just
that it makes sense that that's where they're going to end it, that they're going to end this particular core here. However, the way that they had to get there, it felt like they had to add all these extra scenes to sort of like pad out the runtime of the episode, just so they could get to that particular like cliffhanger. Whereas like in the original, mostly because like the way and it mostly has to do with the way that like they put out like anime back in like the 90s and the 2000s. They didn't really have uh you know separate seasons most of the time, at least. Like for instance, with like Kenshin and other like long running shonens, they just kind of put out an episode, and if they were all caught up with like the manga, then they would just like put out all these filler episodes. But I think with like the original Kenshin, it seems like with the Kyoto arc, they were mostly like they probably weren't all caught up yet with the manga, so that there was pretty much no filler. At least from what I remember, there wasn't. And they didn't really
yeah.
have to worry about like trying to pad out an episode just so they could get to a particular episode count for that one season. They could just keep going. And I feel like that's
Yeah,
kind
but
of like almost a problem with the way anime is done now, is that they have to like for instance with the Kenshin remake. And I'm not sure if that's really the reason why they added some of these new characters in, but it feels like they needed a way to sort of like almost pad out the runtime of the episode just so they could get to a certain point in the story where it would like make sense for them to end it there.
I mean, technically, they would have done at least one more episode if they wanted to, because this is barely just like a week before, technically the winter season ends. But
Yeah.
they just, but the season's
Yeah,
over
I mean, it
already.
already kind
So
of has a weird episode count of being like 23 episodes and not like, I don't know, like 24 episodes, for instance.
yeah, yeah, I don't know. It's like I I don't understand why they have to continually abide by this, this restrictive seasonal setup in which you have to make 12, 13 episodes per core per season and then move on to the next thing.
Well,
I don't know how Japan does you know does anime
yeah. Well,
nowadays.
and
It
even
was a
and
lot.
even like Brotherhood, for example, like they didn't have to worry about stuff like that. It was all just
No,
like, as far as I remember, like I do remember like seeing some of the episodes like as they were coming out when Brotherhood came out, and it wasn't like seasonal like we have now.
no, there were no restrictions back then on how many episodes you can just put out. Like, like not only just Brotherhood, but Dragon Ball, Fairy Tail. There was also what else? One Piece is still going on, for example, and they're still pushing out episodes left and right. Uh, but for something like this, like we already know the manga's over, and then uh, and there was like there's nothing pulling you back from adapting the rest of this stuff, because like you have all the material you need, unlike how they did it the first time around, in which you know they had to stop at a certain point because the manga wasn't finished.
Yeah. Well, and also like if they didn't just stop, then they would just have filler episodes.
Yeah, you know. Yeah. So basically, this episode is just mostly just setting up for what we might potentially see at the I guess you could say the first part of season three. So after Sanosuke and the others received like this challenge to a duel with Shishio and the Ten Swords, it's pretty much just the whole team huddling together, just thinking about their next moves, um, and then of course we see Kenshin talking to some of his friends, including his mentor again, which I don't know. It's just like I didn't really see much a point in that, unless it's like you mentioned, it's just to pad out the time.
Mm.
He Kenshin runs into like one of Shishio's underlings, who ends up like wandering off on his own after his friend died from his injuries. Well, actually, technically, he accidentally killed him. Um, and so like he has a chat with this guy, and then telling him that he needs to I guess move forward with his life. Just forget about the past and such and such. And then of course we have another chat with well, like we have a rooftop chat with Kenshin and Kaoru talking about this and that. I mean, the same usual, talk they usually have when they, uh, whenever things like, usually go bad, or or Kenshin is about to do something that she believes that she might not see Kenshin again here and there.
Yeah, so they
Um,
basically make a promise to go back to Tokyo together. Um, and the only
yeah.
difference with this scene as opposed to how it played out in the original is that Megumi is there.
hmm Yeah, yeah, and then apparently she gives Kenshin something, but we never really see what it was. Um, it's obvious, like she handed Kenshin something, and then Kenshin just put it into his robe. But yeah, I'm guessing we probably won't figure that out until like the next season.
I'm
Um,
predicting that what she gave to him is going to maybe like save his life somehow. Like he might get like almost stabbed in a fatal, like stabbed there, and it'll just like pad the blow or something to where you don't. Yeah, I
yeah,
feel like that's probably the importance of that. But
yeah. Well, I mean, we do get another scene with Shishio's group. Well, we see like Shishio, um, who's of course like annoyed by Hoji's decision to send out those challenge letters, because
yeah,
he didn't really tell him to do that,
I
because Hoji just really acted off on his own, just I guess just in a way help Shishio, but he only complicated things by doing
yeah,
that.
it's just it felt that this is another thing that really just feels pointless to me because um they already challenged Kenshin's group to a duel in a previous episode, so why did they have to send out these formal challenge letters, these duel invitations? It didn't really make a lot of sense. Um, but the other part of the scene is like Hoji sort of apologizing for messing up with the Kyoto fire and how that was like that operation was a failure. That scene kind of happens the same way in the original, but um, I didn't really like how it played out in the original because it just felt like Hoji messed up and he didn't really. There were really kind of almost no consequences for him screwing up like that. Here, I think they did a little bit better here because Hoji actually like they call all the 10 swords together, and Usui like sort of threatens Hoji or just tries to threatens to kill him basically because of his because of how badly he messed up. But Hoji,
Well, I think, well, yeah, he plucks out his
yeah,
fucking
Hoji to like
thumb.
prove his loyalty to Shishio, like plucks out his fingernails, which is something I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that wasn't in the original, like him plucking his fingernails. But he definitely was like very dedicated to Shishio in the original series. So I do like how they have this scene because it definitely like shows just how like dedicated he is to him and his cause.
Yeah. Um, yeah, but it's still, it was a rather pointless effort by Hoji, just doing what he did. I mean, obviously, like we already knew, like Shishio told Kenshin where he was gonna be, so he can challenge him later. But I didn't need to see. I didn't really see the point for Hoji to do this, and then
Yeah,
face the
I mean, really,
consequences
he could have
later. But
just said like, I still have a way to make you like to make our plan work or something like that. I don't think it might. Yeah, I mean, it might not have definitely been necessary for him to do all that, um, but basically, like Shishio calls the 10 swords together so that he can explain like what the new plan is. And now his plan with this duel is that the duel is basically, in a way, kind of a almost like a distraction so that he can get Kenshin and the others to come to their headquarters so that like some of the 10 swords will stay behind and duel Kenshin and his group while the other 10 swords will go and assault the Alia.
yeah, because they saw them like as an unforeseen complication, because
Mm.
they didn't anticipate them to stop stopped them during the first round of the Kyoto fire incident. But yeah, and then of course by the end of the episode we see Aoshi awaiting Kenshin at the hideout, and that's pretty much where where we leave off. The entire
Yeah,
season until season
yeah.
13.
Like Saito comes to get Kenshin, Sanosuke, and I think was Yahiko there or no Yahiko. Yeah, that's right. He stays behind. So yeah, it was just Kenshin, Sanosuke, and Saito.
And yeah, and Saito too. So they're like the only three that are going over to Kenshin, no, to Shishio's hideout.
Yeah. And then I kind of have an issue with the way that they, with that cliffhanger scene at the end, because I mean, it seems to imply that Aoshi is just waiting at the gate, which I really don't like that, because Aoshi is like the third person, like, not much of a spoiler, but Aoshi is the third person that they end up dueling when they go to the headquarters to duel the 10 Swords members. And he, in the original, he's waiting in a library. But here it seems like he's just like waiting at the front gate. Which I don't know, maybe it could be a case where like they duel Aoshi and their duel like remains, like for some reason he slips away or something and they duel him again later. But I don't know. I just don't feel like that's necessary I don't see why they would change that. Because I thought it was mostly fine in the original, aside from the fact that Aoshi didn't really seem like he was proactive in trying to go after Kenshin. But I think with him already having fought Kenshin on the boat or on the ship, that it makes more sense that he would, at this point, that he would be waiting for Kenshin, because he knows at this point that Kenshin is coming there. So there's not really much. I don't really see the reason. I don't know. I just don't really see like why he would, he would do that. It would make more sense to me to maybe like wait for him or something, as opposed to just like meeting him at the front gate. I don't know. But yeah, overall, like, I'm a little bit mixed on this season. In my opinion, like, I've just finished like the original series past the Kyoto arc, and honestly, like, I thought the Kyoto arc in the original series was great. The way they're handling it in the remake, there are some things I think they've done a little bit better, but then there are other things they've done which I don't know why they added those things in. And I feel like as a result, it kind of kills the pacing, where the original series, that didn't really have that problem. But with the remake, they've, for whatever reason, decided to add in some things that just really don't need to be there. And it sort of just like drags things out.
Yeah, I just didn't feel like some of the extra, side characters they just threw in there during the Kyoto incident arc. I didn't really see the point of being there, unless they're going to bring them back for a later storyline, maybe a filler storyline at most. But they just put in a lot of unnecessary stuff that just, like you said, it just ruined the pacing here and there. And then of course it kind of deviates. I don't know if it really deviated from the original source material, but it kind of changed a lot of stuff, especially with with the Aoshi stuff too.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I see what they're doing with Aoshi, and I think in some ways it makes sense, but I just feel like they got to be really, like, I think changing one or two things about his confrontation with Kenshin is fine, but like, for instance, I don't really like the idea that he's just like waiting there at the gate, like he's gonna be the first one they fight. I don't know. Hopefully that's not the case, but I guess we'll see, because they've already confirmed that they're working on season 3. Which isn't surprising to me. I mean, obviously they weren't going to finish the Kyoto arc in this season. There's still like at least like one more core worth of content for the Kyoto arc.
Yeah, and then of course there's one more storyline that happens soon after that. But we don't know how much they're going to be adapting for that one. They did technically adapt it, but it was more of a an OVA.
Yeah, they like adapted one part of it, which is like technically like a mini arc that takes place within that arc, but it's sort of just treated like a prequel. Which, I mean, it is a prequel, but it's just the flashback sequence, I think, that happens in that arc. But yeah, I mean, I'll just say right now, I'm pretty sure there's no way that, like, when this series gets to that part, there's no way they're going to be able to, like, do it any better than they did in that OVA. I just thought, because I recently have seen that OVA, and yeah, I thought, there's the issue is that, like, it has a completely different art style and it has a much different tone than the main series. And I feel like when the remake, they'll probably just try to make it everything like consistent, I guess. Like, it'll probably be the same. It probably won't be like that much more, different than what we've seen in the series so far with the tone and especially the art style. I'm pretty sure the art style is just going to stay the same.
Yeah. In my opinion, and overall the storyline, the Kyoto Fire storyline was okay. I mean, they've made some changes to it, like by actually having the fire this time around. But of course, the overall result of that conflict remains more or less the same. And then, of course, the final confrontation is unfortunately left unresolved. So I don't know. It's just like it's not a bad season. I just feel mixed about like how they went about. I don't know, just making like these weird additions and some of these changes. They attempted to pat out the storyline.
Yeah.
Before the end of the season.
I would just say, like, if people haven't seen Kenshin before, like, I'm sure there'll probably be a lot of people that disagree with me, but I really don't think the remake is the best way to experience it for the first time. You're better off going back to the original series, mostly just because it's already finished. And with the remake, we still don't have the full version of the remake's version of the Kyoto arc, so we're still having to wait for that. Whereas with the original, like, it's already done. You can go back and like watch the whole thing. So yeah. I mean, yeah, if I were to recommend Kenshin to somebody, I would just say just watch the original series. Honestly, I mean, not that the remake is bad. I'm not saying that, but if you want like at least the full, well, not the full story technically, but most of the story up until the Kyoto arc, obviously you're better off just watching the '96 one. But yeah, I mean, overall, like, I'd probably say so far overall I'd give the remake a 7. Like, it's not great, but it's been good enough, I guess. I just wish it was better because I do feel like Kenshin deserves a little bit better than what we've gotten with the remake, but it's not. I guess it could have been a lot worse. I mean, like, for instance, like with Trigun, like, it's a Trigun Stampede, and it's just completely different than, it's not even really a remake, but I don't know what they were doing with that. So I mean, it could be something like that, I guess. So at least it's something that's it's trying to be more faithful to the manga. So I guess there's that. But yeah, I don't really have much else to say about the episode, though. I don't know if you have anything else to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully we'll get some news on season 3. I could assume that we won't get it until like maybe 2026. If that's my good estimation for that thing. But yeah, hopefully we'll get to see how the finale plays out. I mean, we already know how it's going to play out and how much content is left for the remainder of the Kyoto storyline before it moves on to the next one after that.
Yeah, hopefully. But I guess we'll just have to see. But yeah, guys, that all being said, until next time, we will see you all later.